suggested that the lowliest motorsport-grade Porsche road car was basically a gateway drug, the sort of entry-level thrill that, as Reefer Madness warned our grandparents, would lead to more serious and expensive addictions. Now, nearly 3 years later, we've met the automotive narcotic that sits at the top of that scale. On the basis of our first hit in Portugal, we suspect the new Porsche 911 GT2 RS could be the most potent automotive psychotropic of them all. The name isn't hard to decode, and we understand if your first instinct is to feel that this will be a familiar story. While GT3 versions of the 911 use high-revving naturally aspirated engines to give what is almost a perfect balance between performance and grip, GT2s use turbocharged engines to deliver a more brutish appeal and a generous excess of power. The R's addendum stands for Renn Sport and indicates this car's track-centric mission. Whereas the previous generation GT2 had an already gratuitous 620 horsepower, this new 991 edition moves that number up to a credibility stretching 700 horses, courtesy of a twin-turbocharged 3.8-liter flat-six with a water injection system to cool its intake charge. Peak torque, a modest 553 lb-ft, is delivered to the rear wheels through a 7-speed dual-clutch automatic transaxle, PDK. Unlike the GT3, there is no manual option. That's because the GT2 RS is built for speed, both in a straight line and around road racing circuits. Its statistics are as eye-popping as you would expect for the fastest ever factory-built 911. Some obsessive trimming of mass extends so far as to include both lightweight carpets and extra-thin glass closely related to that used in cell phone screens. The optional weight trimming Weissach package shaves 40 pounds at the cost of an extra $31,000, with Porsche claiming a curb weight of just 3,241 pounds, although that means foregoing both the infotainment system and air conditioning. Small wonder that Porsche claims a 2.7 second 0 to 60 mph time and that we estimate the car can burn a quarter mile in 10.3 seconds. The top speed is, get this, limited to 211 miles per hour, in the interest of keeping the track-biased tires in one piece. All such figures are subsidiary to the one number that Porsche's motorsport engineers are proudest of, the one that defines the car's core purpose. That would be 6:47.3, the lap time the car recently posted around the Nürburgring Nordschleife to take the production car record there. That is a dizzying 31 seconds quicker than the previous 997 generation GT2 RS and 10 seconds inside the time set by the 918 Spider, a previous record holder. Meaning the $294,250 GT2 has the legs on a model that, when last sold new, cost nearly 3 times as much. It's a bargain. Weapons-grade technology. We've already told you about much of the GT2 RS's technology overload, from the carbon fiber anti-roll bars and their end links that are part of the Weissach package to the water injection system that draws from a 1.3-gallon tank of distilled water at the bottom of the front-mounted trunk. The question now is how it drives, and the answer is both with a brutality that will delight those in search of the ultimate 911, but also without the bad manners that gave its predecessors their scary characters. The 996 generation GT2 was the first to be made in significant numbers, and it quickly earned a reputation to rival that of the Lockheed F-104 Starfighter. That was the overpowered and frequently unstable Cold War fighter that, in German military service, crashed often enough to earn the nickname of Witwenmacher Widowmaker, a moniker that was applied to the GT2, as it had been to 911 turbo models, thanks to its combination of huge power and snappy handling as it approaches the limits. The 997 generation GT2 and its more hardcore RS spin-off were both less wayward but still needed to be treated with the respect fit for a techie mafia capo in anything other than perfect conditions. Which makes it all the more remarkable how easily one can deploy the new model's enormous performance, both on the road and in its native environs of a racetrack. Cabin is sparse and can be made positively Spartan if, as Porsche had done with the Weissach pack examples provided for our drive, the air conditioning and infotainment system have been deleted to pare mass. Even in the modest warmth of a Portuguese autumn, the cabin becomes too hot when ventilated using only ambient air. Standard carbon fiber bucket seats with fixed backrests brace occupants at an angle suitably upright for motorsports. Even a fully equipped GT2 RS lacks many amenities that come standard in the cheaper, plusher Turbo S, with the doors using fabric pull straps instead of handles and most of the button spaces surrounding the gear selector being blanks. Strangely, although the Weissach shift paddles have been swapped to carbon fiber to save a reported 0.4 pound, a fully stripped GT2 still has a pair of deployable cup holders in the dashboard. There are no rear seats. European buyers can order a Club Sport package that adds a substantial roll cage in the empty rear space, but this equipment doesn't pass US crash regulations. Regardless, this isn't a car anyone will buy for the toys. Neither will it be favored by those seeking refinement. While most modern 911s have become quiet and relaxed, the GT2 RS shortcuts straight back to the origin of the species. The engine fills the cabin with a heavy exhaust note at idle, the rear-mounted flat six throwing up bass-heavy harmonics under even gentle progress as the ball-jointed suspension can be heard and felt working. There are rattles and vibrations that would never be allowed in a lesser 911. The driver and passenger sit close enough to allow for conversation, but higher speeds require raised voices. The ride is firm enough to set surplus flesh wobbling over even apparently smooth roads, although this improves markedly as speeds increase. GT development boss Andreas Preuninger says that his team wanted to make the GT2 RS feel turbocharged, rather than follow the modern trend of trying to hide evidence of forced induction. In this, they have been entirely successful. The engine is tractable but truculent at low revs, pulling cleanly but with limited enthusiasm until the tachometer needle passes north of 2,500 rpm. Beyond that, the turbos add boost with rapidly increasing vigor, giving the GT2 the sense of exponential acceleration that used to define turbocharged engines. Peak power arrives at 7,000 rpm, just 200 rpm shy of the limiter. The GT2 is toweringly fast, but it manages to feel even quicker thanks to both the sheer savagery of the engine's responses and the rate at which it devours gearing that has been deliberately shortened from Porsche's stratospheric norms. Second gear runs out at a relatively modest 62 miles per hour. Getting the accelerator pedal all the way down feels like a genuine achievement. Holding it there for more than a couple of seconds requires a straight road heading to a distant horizon and the will to accept the consequences of what could be a world record speeding ticket. There is a launch control system, which automatically engages if the brake pedal is pressed and held firmly before stepping on the accelerator with the car at a standstill. Releasing the brake dispatches the RS with a ferocity that leaves no doubt about its ability to match or beat Porsche's acceleration claims. However, the clutch dump feature activated by pulling both shift paddles before releasing them to engage drive can be far more entertaining even as it is admittedly less scientific. While the acceleration is astonishing, lateral grip levels are at least as impressive, certainly on dry pavement. Previous GT2s have struggled to find traction, but the GT2 RS's Dunlop Sport Max race tires of our test car, 265/35ZR20S at the front, 325/30ZR21S at the rear. Some GT2s will come with Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2s instead. Find the sort of adhesion that normally inspires reference to Velcro. This is a rear-drive 911 that feels grippier than its all-wheel drive siblings. The RS's steering feels lighter than the usual sporty German tune but is perfectly proportional and has outstanding feel. At street speeds there is no understeer, even on the tightest of the many Portuguese roundabouts we had to navigate. An active rear steering system helps it rotate at lower speeds and improves stability when moving faster. As with the GT3, traction control can be deactivated separately from the stability management system, but even with all the sentinels on guard it is possible to edge the GT2 into slight oversteer with too much throttle. 911S and especially the more road-biased GT3. As with every 911, the cornering line can be influenced by even the smallest of throttle inputs, but the GT2's chassis never really wakes up on the road, where the huge mechanical grip masks many of the subtle messages that make driving the GT3 such a rewarding experience, even at a 5/10 pace. Nor can this engine get close to the acoustic appeal of its naturally aspirated sister's 9,000 rpm scream, the GT2's soundtrack is more violent than operatic. While few potential buyers will be put off, it's still worth noting the rawness of the GT2's appeal. At home on a track while quite effective on the road, the RS truly excels on a track. Porsche arranged for harsher interrogation of the car on the Portimão circuit in the Algarve, a circuit with enough elevation changes to make it a Portuguese Laguna Seca. The GT2 proved mightily impressive on the 2.9-mile-long combination of corners and gradients, with higher speeds revealing a different side to its personality. The RS remains adjective-stretchingly fast, able to gain on the Porsche 918 Spider that was being used as a pace car on Portimão's longer straights, a haze of heat rising from the back of the hybrid as it worked to stay ahead. Track loadings allowed for more exploration of how the RS behaves as its Himalayan limits approach. Yes, it will understeer if too much speed is carried into slow corners, and the rear will slide in response to optimistically early applications of the throttle, yet it still feels remarkably friendly for something so fast and powerful. The carbon ceramic brakes are also worthy of special praise. These perform well on the street, albeit at the expense of some low-speed grumbling, but at Portimão aided by the NACA ducts in the front trunklid, which feed air to the front brakes, they proved tireless, hauling the GT2 down from high velocities time and again without a hint of fade. Apex Predator 911. The GT2 RS is a pinnacle car, one that sits at the top of the Porsche range in terms of both its price and its level of performance. If you want the fastest and the most viscerally thrilling version, then this is undoubtedly it, the ultimate incarnation of a road-going 911 to date. This is a sports car that can humble most exotics on a track, and a remarkable achievement for the team that developed it. The only certainty on past experience is that, at some point in the not-too-distant future, Porsche will create something even faster. But is this the best GT-badged 911? That depends on what you expect from such a car. For many, its performance alone answers the question in the affirmative, but its brutality also throws the subtler appeals of the GT3 into sharper relief. The naturally aspirated car feels like a scalpel; in comparison, the GT2 RS is a chainsaw. So it all depends on what sort of surgery you intend to perform.